This video is sponsored by Ridge Wallets.
Ooh.
Check these bad boys out.
I actually love mine.
I do.
I've got to be honest, when I first got it, I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to adapt to this and using it for mine.
Yeah.
But now I thought I've got too many cards.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's got room for 12 cards. It's dead easy to use. Been using it now. Someone asked me in the pub yesterday, what's that you got there?
Yeah.
Said, is it a card holder? I went, no, it's a wallet. And I showed him how it works. Got the money in the back with a strap holder on the back, so you got cash on the back.
I've got a clip.
Yep.
Which works really well.
Comes in 30 different colours.
Yeah, I really like it. And all you lucky people out there can get 15% off with discount code Blokes at the checkout.
Ridge.com/blokes.
It's got RFID protection, so no one can beep your pockets when you're walking around.
Yeah. Do you know what I think as well? It's a good fidget sort of device.
Actually, it's a little bit.
But it's really tactile, isn't it? The size of it.
Yeah, I love it. So treat yourselves. Treat a friend, treat your girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever wants a wallet. Discount code Blokes at the checkout. That's at ridge.com. That's at ridge.com/blokes. We all love it, don't we?
Yeah, do.
So,
yeah, it's fantastic. Amazing. Yeah.
Nice
over there.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Office Blokes React. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively, we are the Office Blokes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Quick intro, because we had some sponsorship at the beginning, or we should have. Anyway, like and subscribe, get us one of them gold at some point. That'd be really nice of you. 4 ways British and American houses are very different. British houses are small in comparison.
In general.
Some.
Yep.
They're made of brick.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I found is when I moved from the northeast to Houston, Texas, the bedroom was downstairs. Like the master suite was downstairs in Texas.
Oh, really? Is that to
Whereas
keep
in
it
New
cool?
Jersey, it was upstairs. I don't know.
Could be. Yeah.
I always wonder about that, because you know, when it's really hot at night,
Hot climate, upstairs it's absolutely sweltering, isn't it?
Yeah.
You got air conditioning, mate.
Oh, well, I suppose you have there, haven't you? Yeah. That's another difference we don't have it over here, really, do we?
I do.
I hate it.
Oh, do you? All right.
I can't stand it. Basements are more of a thing in the States, aren't they? Isn't it pretty standard that people have a basement?
Yeah.
Certainly in new builds, you just don't get many more, do you, over here?
No.
We've got them with sort of like older Victorian houses, haven't we?
Cellars, cellars, but these are full walkout basements.
Yeah. But we just don't have them at all, do we?
No.
Yeah.
I actually have a covenant that I'm not allowed to dig down on my land.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Because there's mines underneath, so I've actually had to sign a thing to say that I'm
right.
even though
salt mines and stuff.
Even though it's freehold and I own the land, I'm not allowed to mine it, and I'm not allowed to dig down below a certain depth.
What are you going to do for oil then?
God knows.
BP,
oil and
Shell.
water.
Yeah. Shell. They can have more. Anyway, 4 ways British and American houses are very different. Then let's find out.
And tea drinkers that we are, we love our kettles, don't we? But they're not just any kettles. These are ones you plug in and then hit the switch to turn on the plug, because I forgot to mention that our plug sockets also have switches. Hello, I'm Lawrence, and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to houses, the things we live inside. If you're watching this video, it's quite likely you're either inside a house right now, or you're near one, because otherwise you wouldn't probably have internet access quite as easily. To anyone that might be new to this channel, come on in, get yourself a cup of tea. This isn't a genuine offer to come into my house. I'm just saying, join the channel, this is good. And hello to everybody who's been here a long time. Today we're going to look at several ways in which British and American houses are very, very different. Having lived in the United States for over 11 years, I've lived in my fair share of houses here, just as I did in Britain. So I think I have a decent grasp of how houses work. Even tiny ones like this one, which is about 400 square feet. I'm joking, this is a professional studio. Don't question me. And so without further ado, let's take a look at 4 ways that British and American houses are very, very different. Neither Britain nor America is devoid of variety when it comes to their housing styles, and that's because, well, with each sort of passing phase of history comes new designs to meet new needs and just new style preferences. And because of this variety, I'm not going to cover every single one of them, because that would keep us all here until next Wednesday, which would be good for my metrics, but not good for your sanity. So let's take a look at how some of the housing styles do vary from country to country. In Britain, a lot of the distinctive styles are also tied up with the period in which they were built. So you could go all the way back to the Tudor period, and you do find Tudor housing dotted around here and there. In fact, if you go to the city of York, for example...
That's around the corner.
Yeah.
It's a big Tudor house around the corner from here.
It's right up my street. That sort of architecture.
It was owned by the Tring family.
Tring family.
Yeah.
Old Tring family.
Correct. Yeah, that's how the Old Tringham came about. The word.
Interesting.
Family, and it used to be the road that led from there all the way through to Tatton Park, which was the Tatton family, I guess.
Ah, yeah.
And they were neighbours.
Yeah.
Neighbours.
Serious.
Really?
That's what it was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Interesting.
Example, there's quite a lot of sort of Tudor buildings there. They're quite ornate with wood panelling, and they're the sort of place that you might imagine that Shakespeare lived. But wood is less indicative of British houses than you would see in America, where wood is actually quite a common material for building houses. In Britain, from about the Georgian period onward, you're going to see quite a lot of brickwork. Georgian period houses absolutely exist. People live in them, but they tend to be these opulent-looking houses that have notable pops of white rectangle, which are just the windows. It's very nice. They look like dolls' houses that you should live in. But then come the Victorian age, we started moving toward these sort of like orangey brick buildings, right? And a lot of them were terraced houses, which is what Americans would call row houses. And they just look very industrial, right? You could imagine a chimney sweep going up and getting his face covered in soot. And then we move into the Edwardian period, where houses are sort of similar to those of the Victorian age. They're just lighter colours with more chimney sweeps, if Mary Poppins is anything to go by. Now, during World War II, when the Nazis bombed the ever-loving crap out of us, a lot of the houses went boom. And then after World War II, there was a housing boom. And you started to see a build-up of new, more simple houses, kind of like the one I grew up in. That didn't happen. But I grew up in something more like this. That's not Lawrence's actual house. Despite what fairy tales may suggest, most of us have never lived in a chocolate box house, but those do exist. A chocolate box house is the kind of house you might see in the Cotswolds, right? It's very quaint looking, it's got thatch roofing, and it looks like this. And if, like me, you're wondering why it's called a chocolate box house, yet it doesn't look edible, it goes back to the 1950s/60s when chocolate boxes would have on their facade a kind of depiction of a beautiful English countryside. And these types of houses would often feature on said box. Now again, this is by no means an entire repository of British houses. Neither is the following an entire repository of American houses. It's just the more common ones that you will see when you are here. So Cape Cod houses, you know these types of houses, right? They're the ones with the wood paneling down the side. And I said a moment ago that, you know, America makes good use of wood in this country because there's just so much of it. So many woodlands around the country, and it's a huge country from which to pull that resource. So they do, and it's cheap. But funnily enough, the Cape Cod style has its history with English settlers who came here in the 17th century and started building Cape Cod style houses in New England. Now, during the post-World War II period, partly to provide, you know, housing to veterans coming back from war, there was a revival of Cape Cod style housing, and it started to be built not just in New England, but all along the East Coast and in the Midwest, and even out west. Anybody that's seen the Goonies will know that. And it was this style of housing that I first moved into when I moved to the United States. And I've got to say, even despite the Midwest winters, it was really warm. You know, you'd think it would be quite drafty because of all of the gaps in the wood. You could go to specific streets or neighborhoods or areas of the United States and only find these houses for miles and miles. So I lived in one of those, but my grandparents-in-law lived in what is known as a ranch-style house. And these are sort of really low-down buildings, don't typically have 2 floors to them. And once again, these houses became popular after World War II. There was just generally a big sort of boom after World War II, again in the United States in that regard. The 20th century, though, did see more and more revivalism of old styles. So you had, you know, mock Tudor, or should I say revival Tudor, which more or less replicated the kind of Tudor buildings that you would see in England with some differences. And I've seen those types of buildings in Boston, for example. I've also seen them in Indiana. As well as that, the 20th century saw colonial revivalism, though most people don't live in those houses. Maybe one day when I get that grand piano, I'll think about it. And so that's an extremely basic and rudimentary breakdown of some of the different styles that you'll see in each country. But there's one big difference between all of the houses in both countries, and it's this.
It had to be sized, didn't it?
Got to be.
Did you live in any of those style houses?
Colonial.
A colonial.
Did you?
They're nice.
Yeah,
I do like looking. They look really nice, don't they?
I've lived in 37 houses
Wow.
No way.
since I got married.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Do you remember all of them?
Yep.
Wow, that is a lot. That's a lot of moving.
Yeah. How many have you lived in
Me?
Yeah. since you're married?
2.
So big difference, right?
Yeah,
probably is 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, bought our first house, moved to another one. We've been there since. So yeah. In fact, I'm surprised like the 3-bed semi didn't get mentioned really on houses.
the
You know, after
1930s.
the war, Because
What was the
absolutely
they broke
millions
in-
of them built.
Didn't they break into the 30s though? Wasn't that the 3-bed semi sort of thing?
Yeah, 30s stroke 40s. Yeah, they maybe started building them in the 30s, maybe, but I'm sure the 40s was really the big start of the building of them, which I mean, you do see absolutely everywhere, don't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely everywhere.
My house is from the 1860s.
Is it that early?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mine I'm in now is 2020. 2021.
Nice.
You're due to be moving again soon, anyway, are you?
2020. It's 2 years old.
Are you
Been there
moving
2 years.
again?
No.
I'm just going off the amount of times it's moved.
Street.
Let's face it, it's time to face up to some home truths. Compared to America, Britain is microscopic. The United States is absolutely massive and needs to be stopped. And the same is true of each country's average house size. Right, so in the United States, houses just tend to be way more spacious. And we're not just talking about millionaire houses here, we're talking about your average house. So the average size of an American single-family home is approximately 1,600 square feet. In the UK, we're looking at an average of about 900 square feet. So why the difference? Well, one reason is population density. In Britain, we're all a bit packed together. Actually, that partially accounts for why everything is smaller in Britain. Not everything, not the cups. But in America, there's just so much land, and relative to that land, so few people. So, make them as large as you want, and they do. They're huge. But also, a large majority of American houses are relatively new, meaning that they were able to benefit from, building methods and materials that other countries like Britain were not. And the post-war expansion of American highways meant that this was enhanced even more. Those materials could be moved around the country more easily, and of course, this ushered in a more grand housing development. Now, all size aside, try saying that after 10 tepid tequilas, things become subtly different once you're inside the houses of either country. Is gadgets the right word? I don't know, I'll have to fire my graphics team. Either way, we're essentially talking about accessories, the things you have in your house that make that house work, even when you're doing the house work. So for example, airflow, right? America's bigger on its overhead fans and air conditioning units. We don't usually use those. I mean, we like to punish ourselves, especially in the summer, but we can crack a window open and it doesn't get oppressively hot. Always. And so we've mostly been fine with this situation. It does mean that insects get in. So daddy longlegs will get in the house and mosquitoes, but it's a small price to pay for not having air conditioning. I actually quite like air conditioning now that I've lived in the US. Speaking of insects, you also don't see in Britain those...
The the building regulations in this country, apparently black mold's becoming quite a big thing in new builds.
Oh yeah.
Because they've got to be built to retain heat so much that they're retaining moisture as well.
I can't remember what the phrase is. It's like airtight, isn't it? They've got to be there's only a certain amount of air that's supposed to escape from the actual
pretty
building
much,
or something like that.
it's to make it more economical, so that
to retain more heat and things. But
because I have it in ours. Ours is a relatively new build.
Yeah.
And in ours, we have the vents in the ceiling that there's like a machine in the cupboard. I don't know what the fuck it does, but it's always on. And it's always making a noise.
Yeah.
And it's to do with these vents.
Yeah.
I turned it off one day to see what it was, and then I turned it back on. It says, and it's got like green lights, red lights, orange lights, and it's like air flow or whatever. And you can hear the vent's going to put a piece of tissue paper up.
Yeah.
And it sucks it up a little bit.
Right.
That's going to be sucking all the moisture out of the place.
I would guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what the house I just moved out of had, because that was really damp. So basically, they just put one of them in the hope that it just sucks up all the damp.
We do tend to generally sort of like rely on opening windows, don't we, for airflow and getting moisture out of the house, I suppose, don't we? For most houses, anyway.
Open my windows or doors, it's like fucking tornado passing through. Windy when it's blue skies, calm weather, it's fucking windy as fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You're a bit higher up there, aren't you? So
air conditioning. I actually quite like air conditioning now that I've lived in the US. Speaking of insects, you also don't see in Britain those insect screens that you put in the windows, hence why they're getting in. In America, they're virtually in every house, but then again, in Britain, we don't have black widows or brown recluses or the types of mosquitoes that make your face go like this. So I can see why it's justified. I mean, you still get ants, or is that just me?
We do have brown recluses,
We get
don't
brown
we?
recluse. Brown recluse. We do
Yeah.
get it, yeah.
Yeah, I not only caught one in a glass at the rented house, and it was the size of a whiskey glass, and chucked it out the window. But when I moved in like a week and a half ago to this house, then we found one as well.
If they bite you, your flesh eats away. That's what happens with a brown recluse.
I don't even know we had them over here.
I'm pretty sure we have them over here.
They definitely.
Yeah.
I've seen two in two separate houses over here.
Yeah.
So they were becoming quite common
Brilliant.
Yeah.
They're in your bed now, Mike. They're under your bed.
It's nearly as bad as going into the sea, that is. Thinking about them.
Not sure how they get in, maybe cracks in the wall, or maybe through the plug sockets. The plug sockets, of course, are different in both countries too. In Britain, you have the 3-pronged outlets, and in America, you sometimes have 3, but occasionally 2. And they're smaller in America than they are in Britain. That's one of the few things about which you can say that. Separate taps, of course, for hot and cold water. Americans combine them all into one. Where's the logic in that? I'm joking. And while we're on the subject of sinks, most British sinks don't have that sort of food waste disposal thing that you press the button and it does the noise. Amazing. That was one of the best things I discovered after I didn't discover it. Somebody else came up with the idea and I just used it. But it's amazing. It's just so pleasing to know that all of that gunk gets broken down, and just don't put your hamster in there. I've learned that lesson from someone else. I didn't do it, just read about it on Reddit. Letterboxes. Firstly, Americans don't call.
Where does it go?
Just on your.
Ship just goes into like a container below, does it?
No, you don't empty it. It'll go down the
into the sewage, like the sort of waste.
Seems like having a shit in it.
I suppose. What happens?
So it just really, really mangle it up then to go into the normal drains.
What happens if you shit in the food disposal thing? Where does that go? Does that go in the toilet?
You put your hand in then. Get it out. Fisting, that's called. Fisting the disposal.
Nice.
Call them letterboxes, but mailboxes, and typically don't have them on the door, but outside in the yard. The garden/yard is different, often smaller in Britain, but very well kept up, depending on the family, and just massive yards here with, mesh fences and things like that. Or
give me some time.
Back inside, a lot of properties in the United States will have walk-in closets that are built into the actual walls of the house, whereas in Britain, you bring your own closet/wardrobe to put your clothes in, and that takes up more space, I've just realised. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot every step of the way. Except when it comes to washing machines and dryers. How cool is this? We combine them both into one giant cube, whereas America has 2 separate cubes. And tea drinkers that we are, we love our kettles, don't we? But they're not just any kettles. These are ones you plug in and then hit the switch to turn on the plug, because I forgot to mention that our plug sockets also have switches. And then, you turn it on, don't need a stovetop, and it heats up. Just like that. You've got your water, Bob's your uncle, pour it into a mug, there's your cup of tea.
Don't they have them in America?
Yes.
They do?
Yeah.
Because how else are you making your coffee? I know people are going to have like a percolator and all that sort of stuff, but like...
Even with a percolator, you still boil the water first, don't you, and pour it in.
Does some of them not just heat it slowly?
Yeah, I thought they did.
Like a cafetiere type thing. You pour the water into that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You're talking about the coffee machine where you pour the water in behind.
No,
filter through like filter coffee.
It's the one that's like you see in the
big,
cafes and stuff.
It's like the
big jar.
Jar underneath, yeah.
Yeah.
A pot.
A pot, yeah.
Yeah. What's it going on about them?
Well, that you wouldn't have to fill out through a kettle.
Yeah.
Just fill out with regular water, don't you?
Right,
Coffee machine type thing.
Yeah.
In America, you do have the stovetop kettles, and part of me likes that because it does this really pleasing whistling sound at the end. Now, if you were paying attention during that...
Now, think about it. I think we struggled to get an electric kettle.
Really?
Yeah.
I believe
we had to shop around to get one. Well, we had to go to a specialty store now, I think about it.
I just always remember on programmes, films, whatever, just seeing like the pots of coffee that are already made and people pour it. And thinking about it, I've never occurred to me before if they have kettles or anything.
I don't think. Well, people might tell me they do and all, but I don't remember seeing instant coffee that much. In people, when you go around to people's house, you didn't often have instant coffee like you do over here.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. If someone offers me coffee and it's instant coffee, I'm like, I'll do it.
I was going to say, depending on where you are in the UK, you don't make instant coffee for your guests. It's like a major insult, isn't it? I'd honestly, that's more normal than you'd think. Get the Nescafe out and people are like, nope, I'll pass.
Same, I won't drink. Occasionally, if it's like if I really want a coffee and I'm at someone's house, that's all they've got, then it's what it is, isn't it? Sort of thing. But I'm not a fan of it.
I've got a cafetiere and a little bean grinder and stuff at home.
Nice.
Nowadays, it's all what's it now? It's that Nespresso.
Nespresso.
Yeah,
the
machine.
Espresso machines.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know the ex took it.
At least you may have noticed that I touched on some of the terminological differences when it comes to housing in either country. And that brings us on to our final entry. It wouldn't be Britain and America if they weren't two countries separated by a common language, and the same is true of the housing world. So let's finish with a rapid fire round looking at those very words. So here in Chicago, I live in a flat, except in America they don't call it flat, it's called an apartment. Something else that you'll find in America though are these condominiums or condos, if you don't fancy saying a word that has condom in it. And we do have those in Britain. They're usually called common hold properties, and I suppose most British people wouldn't go around using that term, whereas you actually hear the term condo quite a lot. It's been suggested to me that I move into a condo, and it sounds good. I mean, when I first heard the term, I thought it sounded like I might be moving onto a lakeside boat or something like that. It is like an apartment, but it's one you would buy. It's real estate. Now, as a child and young adult, I grew up in a house that was known as a semi-detached house. That's when you have a house adjoined to one other house on one side, but not on the other side. In the United States, this is known quite simply as a duplex, which is not a wrestling move. If it is adjoined on both sides with another house, then you are part of a line of houses that are known as terraced houses in Britain. In America, they're known as row houses because they're all in a row, presumably. Then there's council housing in Britain versus the projects in the United States, and that's just another way of saying public housing. To control the electricity flow in Britain, you have the mains power. In America, you have the grid power. And what if you're sick and tired of the place that you're living in and you just want to relocate somewhere else? In America, you would just simply move. In Britain, you'd move house. And on that note, I'm going to move out to my outro transition because this is the end of the video. Let me know in the comments below if you're watching this from your house right now, or just if you're not. Leave a comment either way. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that my videos don't get lost in the pond. A big reminder, by the way, if you want to keep up with me on a day-to-day basis and just see some of the stupid trivia.
Interesting one, that.
Very good. Yeah, that's good, that. Yeah.
I like his humour.
He's dry, isn't he?
Yeah, I like his delivery. He's really good.
Yeah.
Knows what he's talking about as well, I think, doesn't he? By the sound of it.
Yeah.
So,
Switched
which
on.
is always good.
Yep.
I think like air conditioning is pretty non-existent in a house over here, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's definitely one. I know like apartments may be different. there's quite a lot in there.
I'd struggle without any AC in mine because it's all glass as well, so it gets really hot through as soon as the sun shines.
Yeah,
you have to have the AC on. Yeah.
And I think size-wise, I mean, years ago, in the 20s, 30s, we had a lot of terraced housing as well, didn't we? It would have been crappy weather over here. I think a lot of the time they were smaller because it's cheaper, more affordable for the type of work that the people were doing.
Oh, yeah.
But also cheap to heat the houses, wasn't it?
Yep.
You know, they used to have smaller windows and stuff like
mid
that.
terraces. You don't even have to put your heating on because both your neighbours.
Exactly.
Exactly. Because we're on the top, all the heat comes up to us. We don't have to go on, really.
Yeah,
it gets quite warm. But do you know the other thing that's you only see here? I've never seen anywhere else.
Anywhere.
I've only ever seen them right round the corner here in Newhall Green in Wythenshawe.
Yeah.
Tin houses.
Oh yeah. The tin roof ones.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they were built. They were built from people coming back from war because there was a shortage of houses, so they were scrambled up as a temporary measure. They were only temporary housing that.
And 70 years later, there's still people living in them.
Yeah.
You can't get a mortgage on them either.
Oh, you can't?
I know someone that tried to buy one, but well, it's very hard because the house, when they get surveyed, the surveyor's like, that's not really a house.
Because in Elstree, like near Stamford Park, like prefabs as well, they were called, which is a similar type of thing, but they're just like little bungalow type houses, which again, I think it was after the war, but they're just really cheap, and I think probably virtually no foundations in them, I don't think. Yeah. But like I said, that's probably why you were able to get a mortgage on them, maybe. But yeah, good point. I bet they're not anywhere else, have they?
I've never seen them anywhere else.
And you've been to a few places, so
I've never seen a tin house like that.
Must be an absolute nightmare. I bet they got them in Africa.
Imagine when it hailstones.
I know, yeah.
Oh, it's noise and shit. Heavy rain.
Oh yeah, I've thought of that.
I love being in a tent and it raining, and hearing the rain, and I love sleeping to that. It's one of the best sounds in the world. But a tin roof, like I say, with hailstones, would be well too much.
It's not even just the roof though; it's halfway up as well.
Yeah,
it's tin from the halfway to the top as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's a nightmare.
I'm surprised no one's nicked the roof around there for scrap.
They've probably tried.
Yeah,
some of them have took it down, haven't they, and replaced it. But it's for the most part, it's all tin houses.
Yeah, of course, forgot about them.
Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget like and subscribe. Hit the bell. Catch you on the next one.
Cheers. Guys.